Everybody can see. Oops. Everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes.
So this is our monthly meeting from our Houston chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. And thank you all for joining. And so for today's agenda, we always do like to welcome everybody, and especially anybody new that hasn't joined us previously. And so the main topic for today's meeting, I think most of you know that last month in July, Citizens Climate Lobby had its yearly conference, national conference, and Lobby Day event in Washington, D.C. And so we're lucky that one of our volunteers, Waqar, has joined us today. Waqar was there in Washington, D.C. And so Mark is going to be leading a discussion, just talking about that and, discussing what Waqar has observed and how that all went and what the impressions are. So that should be a really interesting discussion. And then following that, we'll go through our normal topics, status reports from our lever teams, and then wrap up our meeting. As far as the agenda that we'll be sharing today, we always have a lot of web links in the agenda. And so here we always have a QR code you can capture from your phone if you want to be able to have a copy or the web link to our meeting agenda so you can access all of the web links and so on. And then there's also a bit.ly short web link. So I'm going to pause on this page for a minute so you can capture that if you need to. Okay, and I'm also going to put the web link into the chat so you can get it that way as well. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so it's now also in the chat. I'm going to move on. And so this is our placeholder page for our discussion with Mark and Waqar. And I'm going to stop sharing while we go through that. So guys, please jump in.
Hey, good morning, everybody. And Waqar, we welcome you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you regularly go to Washington on Lobby Day for CCL each year, and really commend your dedication to that and your enthusiasm. I know you've expressed a lot of enthusiasm about that. And that's, yeah, we need that because, yeah, it takes a lot to get there, and lodging and travel and all that. And so, yeah, I'm glad you're enthusiastic about it and share that with us. So I'll just let you start. I have a few questions, but I'll just let you start generally, whatever you want to share about your trip and the conference, and especially anything about the lobbying efforts.
Okay, sure. Mark, thanks for the introduction. And I also noticed Bob Hendricks on the line. He was at the conference also, and is also, of course, probably been there more often than I have. But the conference was good. So beginning, we had a 1-day conference. So maybe just give a brief overview of that. And all of this information is on CCL's website, that they do a pretty good job of circulating where you can find the conference agenda. There are slides from the conference that are available. I don't think it's all the slides, but most of them, it may be all of them, are also available online that you can look at. There's recordings as well. So you can catch up on all of that. And if you don't have the links, let me know. I can provide them. So in the conference, Ricky had kicked it off, And then there was a keynote by Jigar Shah, who he's done a lot of stuff. I think he's pretty much a venture capital entrepreneur kind of right now. But previous to this, he was in the DOE's loan office and made a lot of loans to clean energy during the Biden administration. So he talked about the energy landscape, permitting reform. Um, so that was a good kickoff. Then we covered the asks for the lobby day. There was a session on bridge training that I think most of you would know about. But it's sort of a way of thinking about how you can bridge to someone else's view of the world, basically, and get down to understanding perhaps what some of their core values might be, and try to build some common ground around core values, which is one of the things that we try to do. Um, There was some sessions on permitting reform. There was one on carbon pricing, which unfortunately I wasn't able to attend. CCL is planning to kick off, um, let's say, looking at carbon pricing again. And there's going to be a whole series of carbon pricing sessions online on Zoom beginning on September 3rd. There's tremendous interest in CCL amongst CCL volunteers to get back to carbon pricing. And I think due to a lot of volunteer pressure, if you want to call it that, um, CCL has decided to start, sort of start that up again. I think they're quite hesitant to actually leap into lobbying on carbon pricing right now because the ground is pretty infertile for that in Congress, to say the least, like at the very moment. But maybe that'll change. And there was a leadership meeting. So leadership being chapter leaders, well, state coordinators, chapter leaders, and also liaisons. So I went to that, and that was pretty interesting. Ricky talked about a survey that had been sent out to chapters, and I don't know if in our chapter, if you're aware of that or not,
Yes,
but
all the group leaders received that, and I filled it out and responded on that.
oh, okay. Oh, great, Joe. So yeah, so he referred to that, and apparently they got like a 50% response rate, which he said he was very happy with, although, you know, just me as not a group leader looking at that, I would think group leaders should be like at 100% response rate. So but anyway, he was happy with the 50%. And I think one of the main things that came out of that survey was that some of the groups are really looking for help as far as recruiting people and engaging people is concerned. That's one of the things that he highlighted. Not being a group leader, not kind of up to date on all of the different aspects of what CCL is asking group leaders to do, but that's one that I do remember. And I think they do want to reach, I mean, they're very limited in staff, of course, but I think they do want to reach out and help with that. Um, so I don't know, Joe, if you've heard anything back specifically on, from Ricky on that survey and how they're planning to address the results.
No, so far I haven't seen any actual response to the survey that went out. But as
Okay.
far as engagement, for example, that's always an ongoing issue with our chapter as well as I think other CCL chapters nationwide. We have a chapter development team that both Mark and Cord are active in, trying to reach out to people when they contact us. So typically in a month we may have 10 people, 15 people reaching out to us. That means they've gone to the national CCL website. They've clicked on join, they've joined the website. And so now we reach out after that happens, we get notified and we want to welcome them. And so we either email or call and ask them to join our meetings, and we always want to help answer any questions. But typically, even after making those efforts, we have a very, very low response in terms of people actually joining our meetings, people actually getting involved and becoming active. And that's the similar thing that happens every month. And I've been told that's also a big nationwide problem. So although we're actively trying to get new participants, new volunteers, it's always very, very difficult.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that, Joe. And um, uh, yeah, if we could uncrack that code and even get like 20% or 30% rather than a smaller number, it would make a big difference. But I think that's one of the things that CCL is trying to focus on. They probably, hopefully they'll reach out to you about what their plans might be and whether they're looking for further input on what might be done and so on. So that was one of the interesting topics. So that pretty much I think covers. Oh, and then also it was a very, very super busy day. So, we also had lobby meeting planning sessions during that day of conference. So, I was in three lobby meetings, two of which I was leading. So there was three planning sessions with the lobby teams to get ready for the lobby meeting, and that was all on the Monday. So before I go on, is there anything else that anybody wants to add
I
or
did have
ask or know about or?
I did have a question for you, Wakar, when you were mentioning about the carbon pricing and wanting to get that restarted, which I think is a great idea. But in the back of my mind, I've thought about that a lot. And actually, I think that was one of the questions that was asked on the group leader survey. Is there any, enthusiasm, any request to restart carbon pricing? And I responded, yes, that I feel that's very important. But then I entered a comment on the survey and I said, well, carbon pricing is great and all that, and we want that. However, in this economic environment that we're in with high inflation, people struggling to pay their monthly bills and so on, how is that going to work with inflation in the background of that? And was that discussed at all, or?
Like I say, unfortunately I was not able to attend the carbon pricing discussion. There may be a recording of that, and so which I haven't had a chance to look at, but I would say that may be a good place to go to that recording and see what was discussed there. The and I am planning to go to the September 3rd carbon pricing first sort of kickoff, where I think a lot of these issues will be raised. Um, yeah, so I think that's pretty much my level of knowledge. I mean, the point that you're raising is 100% correct. There was a get together that I was able to go to of the carbon pricing action team. So some of the members were there, and we did have a chat, and this topic, of course, came up, and there are some ideas of how one could proceed, but the political environment's not all that welcoming. But you might be able to do some things. Money is going to have to be raised. I mean, we could talk about this a lot, but money is going to have to be raised somehow, because basically, U.S. government is spending far more than what it's taking in, and putting a price on carbon is a way of raising money. So that might be an angle where you say, okay, well, our debt is out of control. Um, you can either drastically cut back spending, or you can raise taxes. And one way to raise taxes is a carbon tax, which also, has a positive impact. But of course, the environment has to be right for that to take place.
Well, Car, I was wondering if Bob Hendricks was able to attend that workshop on carbon pricing. Bob, I don't know if you're there.
Yeah, I don't think Bob is actually there. That's just like an AI, I think, because Bob is the owner of this Zoom line meeting, and that always
Okay.
pops up. I don't think he's
Oh,
actually on the call.
okay. Okay.
Deception.
What was
Just to
your,
follow, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, this is Gail. What was your feeling about Jigger Shaw's discussion? I only caught the very end of it. Was there one or two points that really stood out to you?
Um, the point that's, he talked about permitting reform, how it would benefit clean energy. Um, so, which was something expected, as far as what he would talk about. I don't think he was too definitive about his view, and he probably hasn't, and actually there hasn't been a proper analysis of this at all as to whether his view on permitting reform, reducing emissions, and how that would all work. I don't think he got into that too much. Um, yeah, so that's I think the main thing I remember is how permitting reform would benefit renewables and clean energy.
The one thing, I know I'm going to go back and listen to the video, but he made a comment or two with regards to um, the growth of AI. And
Yes.
his thought on that growth was that um, he didn't believe the marketplace was going to unfold where we were going to have a huge number of very large AI sites. He seemed to think that there was going to be a rather distributed set of sizing of AI data centers. I don't know how he got to that conclusion. At least that's what I thought I heard. I need to go back and listen, but I mean, like, and that kind of interested me because when you hear everybody talking about AI data centers, there's really not a discussion on how they all fit into the scheme of things. I mean,
Right. Yeah, no, I do remember that. And I'm going back and I'm looking at my notes, and I actually took quite a lot of notes during his talk. Um, let's see. He talked about yeah, I mean, he did talk about the AI. Let me see if I can find that section. Oh, he said, yeah, can use 5 MW data centers now, don't need new 1 GW data centers, which was a very interesting comment.
yeah, and that's what things like that really to me that was like a big wake up call saying, I mean, it's just a wake up call, and so I mean, to me, we're all learning about what the impact of AI data centers does, but we
Yeah.
haven't figured out what seems to be the way all these pieces are going to fit together. Because not everything, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any, well, I shouldn't say that. There's probably a vision of some people, but I think a reality of how that's going to unfold in the long term is does that was the one comment I heard that I haven't heard from anybody place else. I mean, I've sat into a number of data center calls and nobody really, I mean, they talk about its impact, but they don't see how all the pieces are fitting together. And to me, that's an important thing. So
Yes.
I do have some feedback on that topic I'd like to share. Waqar, is that okay, or did you want to?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, please. Yep.
So, it's interesting because Nancy Chen on this call, Nancy is a student, a volunteer working with us. She's attends Rice University and she's volunteering. And Nancy, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I hope you don't mind if you could come off mute. Nancy just worked on submitting a letter to the editor to the Houston Chronicle this past week, which I reviewed with her and I helped a little bit. And it was all about a news article recently published in the Houston Chronicle about the data centers, AI data centers, specifically in Texas. That's become a pretty hot political topic. And Greg Abbott, our governor, just went on record saying that he's going to temporarily put a pause on that while he researches. And Nancy, if you wouldn't mind just sharing your notes on what you learned when you researched about the AI data centers, would that be okay?
Yeah, but I think my understanding on AI as well as the energy usage is not that deep. So I'll just like share a few. So for example, as we all know that the using of AI costs a lot of energy, and there are different aspects of the consumptions. And for different kinds of the usage of AI, for example, some people are using AI like for searching for more informations, and some people are using AI to write the code. So there are like different usage of the AI, and with different usage, there are also like different levels of the consumption of energy. And also for the letter that I wrote is about the Texas data centers and how that has the impact about power on the water supply. So I would just feel like it has been the AI as well as the consumptions of energy or power has connections, and we can see that the government is also putting efforts into the legislative like efforts to trying to solve like both some risky results as well as how to better preserve the usage of the energy, something like this.
Nancy, if you had your notes handy, if you could just read through some of the facts that you read about the forecasted increase in gigawatts of electrical power that'll be required, and the amount of additional carbon pollution that'll go into our atmosphere. You have all those notes, if you could pull that up real quickly. But while you're doing that, I just wanted to add that, in my own personal opinion, the way I see AI, it's more or less the same as the gold rush, right? From the 1800s, whenever that happened, 1849, I guess. Everybody went to California to get in on the gold rush, and this is a gold rush of AI. Eventually, from any kind of a thing like this, there'll be some type of a pullback. Not all the companies that are involved in it right now will survive. Some of them will fall out. There's a mass incentive to build as many data centers as possible right now. That's going to lead to an oversupply, in my opinion, and not all of those planned data centers will be built. But that's just my opinion on that. Nancy, were you able to find that information from your research?
For now, I can only find what I wrote in my letter. Do you want me to read those or?
No, I was really interested in the research, the notes that went into your letter, not the letter itself. That's okay. We can go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you can go on. But I make sure like I can have those information ready for maybe next time or something.
Well, if you can, we're going to keep talking, but maybe while you're talking, you could pull that up, and once you're ready, you can share that. I thought that was very crucial and very interesting.
Oh,
So
okay.
the other question, did has Governor Abbott called a special session to review what's happening on data centers? Or is
Not
he
to my
just
knowledge.
talking?
He's just he said he's going to have a study done. He didn't mention anything about reconvening the legislature.
Okay, because that's one thing I know a number of groups are asking for. Um, and so that's what, I mean, I hadn't heard, I mean, anyways, and the other piece that, the one other piece that really kind of scared me in the face was they're doing a water study for the state of Texas right at the moment. And the water study shows the state of Texas in 20 or 30 years to be short of water. But that doesn't include all the AI data centers that are coming online. I mean, it's because of people moving to Texas.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I
So
mean, you've
our
got,
state has been in continuous drought for years, and we have many people don't know this, but we have a state climatologist. I don't remember his name offhand, but I believe he's a professor at Texas A&M, and he's published many op-eds and letters that are out there, really asking the Texas state government to do a much better job of planning for future water usage. Because right now we have the huge aquifer out near San Antonio that's draining, because more water is being pulled out than is coming back in to recharge the aquifer. And the the usage of water, you're right. That's a critical kind of a scary thing. In fact, there have been articles I've seen that Corpus Christi is running out of water, and there have been discussions about whether or not to build gosh, my brain went blank, but a plant to
Desalination plant.
desalination plant to provide more water. It's a huge topic and it's very scary, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the comments. I think we should get back to Wakar's report on lobbying day because we only have limited time.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I apologize.
No, you're okay.
Would you like me to talk more about Jigar Shah's presentation, or should I move on to the lobby day itself?
Yeah, I think move on to, unless there's something important you want to share about
Okay.
it.
Well, there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot in his presentation. I could give some highlights if everyone promises to not um, start digging into all of this. This could take 2 hours. I mean, literally, if we get into it too much. But there was a lot. He talked about batteries. He talked about distributed power. He talked about the smaller data centers. He talked about how the grid could be optimized, the lines are only used 75%. There's a lot in there. So I would say maybe just listen to the presentation would be the most effective way.
What is his name, Wakar?
Jigar Shah, it's a Jigar. Last name is Shah. So his was the keynote in the morning. So if you go to the CCL material, you should be able to find it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, shall I move on to
Yeah, the lobby day.
the lobby day? Okay. So the lobby day, I guess this is pretty much personal experiences at this point.
Yeah,
And sorry.
that's great. Yeah.
Okay. So I had three meetings, and then also two that were just dropping off the ask sheets at offices. But really there was three substantial meetings. All three were with Texan House representatives, and it was two Republicans, one Democrat. Uh, so high level. I think one of the questions you were interested in, Mark, was what was the tone of the meetings? They were very friendly and respectful on both sides. They were good. They were good conversations. Just sort of wrapping all three of them all into one. Um, each conversation, was of course a little bit different. Um, did not have any meetings with. So if you talk about the political spectrum, these were all probably more towards the middle of the political spectrum. So kind of moderate Republicans, kind of moderate Democrat, right? So there weren't any with the outer ends of the spectrum, I would say. Um, our There was generally support for our asks. The the permitting reform is a very complicated topic. And so, yeah, there's a lot of support. There was support from the people that we talked to. And these weren't these were the not they weren't the actual legislators. It was their aides, but we were pretty much talking to the right people. The energy aide, in one case, it was the legislative director. In another case, it was someone he was just coming in to be the new energy aide, basically. Wasn't 100% up to speed, but was probably 80, 90% up to speed. So they were the right people, as far as the aides are concerned, which is really good. So the conversations were substantial in that extent, that we could talk about specifics.
Walker,
Yeah.
what were the asks?
Okay. So the asks, there was three asks, and for the House there was two asks, and then there was a third ask for the Senate. The asks were comprehensive energy infrastructure permitting reform, and the ask was it was basically asking people to come to to complete this work that's been going on for a long time and to pass the legislation. It's currently in the Senate. Um, if all goes well, the Senate will come out with some legislation in August. It'll go to the House in September, and it'll get voted on. The timeline is very, very short. So, whether this will happen or not is very much an open question. But that was the ask, to bring this together. And then there's a lot of specific things, and CCL had some specifics that we'd like to see in the legislation. So we mentioned those. I was doing the permitting reform discussion in all three meetings, or leading it, and so I mentioned all of those things that CCL is interested in, and we can talk about that. And then there's also some specifics around the things that are actually the difficult parts, the parts that need to be negotiated and finalized right now in the Senate committees, EPW and ENR committees, is where this is being hashed out. And then also with the administration as well for another issue as well. There's a really very, very interesting situation right now, and we got a lot of insight. I mean, I would say um, some of the A, I mean, all the aides are pretty open, I think, in their opinions. Some of them were very knowledgeable, super knowledgeable, and pretty open with, hey, this is where the issues are, and this is who's working on them, and this is what I think. So, so that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you want to say one or two um, specifics that CCL was promoting
Sure.
with the states?
Sure, Mark. Um, so CCL had four main asks, and one was around transmission reform, um, and what that means within that electrical transmission reform. Within that, things like cost allocation. So if you're building a transmission line, who's going to bear the costs? And it should be fairly allocated. It's easy to say, very difficult to write down and get people to agree to it. How would the cost be allocated? Um, and then another big one for transmission reform is, and CCL, I don't know if they were saying this directly or not, but this is a point that also requires a lot of negotiation, is increase in FERC authority over transmission lines, which would
Mm,
not apply to Texas, by the way. Texas would almost certainly be exempt from this, but for the rest of the country, can FERC step in and issue permits if states can't agree amongst themselves for transmission lines that are crossing states? It doesn't
mm,
apply to Texas, most likely because ERCOT has always been exempt from FERC, like wholesale FERC oversight.
right.
Um, that was a big one. Another big area, oh, and I can go more into depth into all of these if you want. But another big one is certainty. So certainty meaning if a permit is issued by, say, the EPA, then should an administration be allowed to come back later and say, yeah, that permit was issued, but that was then, this is now, we're canceling the permit.
Mm,
Biden administration did that with Keystone Pipeline was one big example. Trump administration is doing that right, left, and center with wind farms. And and so that's a big issue. Everybody wants certainty. Business terribly, terribly wants certainty. And but this and I think, I mean, from what I gather, Republicans and Democrats in Congress want certainty also, but they're up against the administration. And so some of the thinking that I heard was, well, the only way this is going to get solved is if business can bring enough arguments to bear to the president. That's really going to be up to It's going to be up to the oil and gas industry. It's going to be up to the utilities and the utilities may not even push this too hard, but it's going to be up to business, the American Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, to make that happen, that piece of it. And then another thing that CCL wants is to make sure that there is early engagement of communities, and communities get good input into projects. And everybody's on board with that kind of idea. It's a win-win. You don't want local people upset by things that are being done to them, right? And
Yeah.
right, but it's complicated. How do you deal with that and still get to decisions? How do you decide whether to go ahead with the project or not? So that's another big one. And then the last one is NEPA reform. What is that? That's the I think it's the National Environmental Protection Act. So it's a process. It's a process that big projects have to go through, doing whatever required environmental studies and so on, and there's various steps and so on. And it can be streamlined
Mhm.
more than it is currently. That's a big part of permitting reform. And again, complicated to get people to agree to it, to exactly how it would be streamlined. So those are four main things that CCL wants to see, and they're really four of the main things in permitting reform. So all of this is, being negotiated in the Senate. Apparently, there's some text being shared, not publicly, but amongst senators,
Mhm.
and that's the status of it.
Okay. Yeah, and so just to go back to your earlier comment, the aides that you spoke with these three House representatives, they seemed on board for the permitting reform.
Well, yes, but I would say all three expressed support for it. Um, all three expressed support for it. I mean, the two caveats I would say is, first of all, these were all, they were all, like I said, towards the center politically. It
Mhm.
wasn't the extremes where you would probably hear more concerns. And also, people are supporting their version of what they'd like to see, right? Until there's actual text, um, and they can say, "Well, yeah, I like it all," or "Oh, there's this one thing that's just a deal breaker for me." Yeah, we're not actually at that point yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody in the audience have a question for Waqar about what he shared?
Just one car, maybe some feedback from myself or partially a question about the permitting reform bill. Well, we saw very recently, there was a housing bill um, that was overwhelmingly approved in both the House and the Senate, and Trump chose not to sign it, but he let it go. And this is something I never actually knew before, that if you let it go for 10 days and you don't take any further action, it becomes law, right? If it was passed by the House and the Senate. Just curious, if you have a sense of how, what type of voting might happen with the permitting reform bill, and maybe Trump will just ignore it and it'll get passed on its own. Any thought on that?
I mean, really didn't get any insight into that. But I guess that's an option that he would have. So, maybe he would take that. But the best insight that came from one of the meetings was what I mentioned, on this particular topic, that it's not going to be it's not going to be the so this is from one aide, okay? And the insight basically was it's not going to be Congress convincing the president on certainty, which is probably the big issue for the president. And it's gonna have to be industry. It's gonna have to be the American Petroleum Institute, you know, for example, or American, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, for example,
Mhm.
which they are. I mean, they are. I mean, they're lobbying very, very hard right now.
Oh,
I
good.
guess it comes down to how many additional donations they give to Trump.
Yes, it could. It could. Maybe they'll give up some of their windfall profits, or something. The-
Okay, we had a question from Pastor Deb.
Thank you so much, and good morning to all, and thank you for allowing me to sit in today. I just wanted to say about the data centers that to take it down to the job economy, where you have a need for green thumb jobs with the brownfield mentality, and we see people waking up, but a lot of people that go to these rural small towns like Taylor. I have a niece that moved to Taylor, Texas. They built a big Samsung plant behind her. They're giving jobs to people that have only high school education, sometimes six-figure jobs. Okay. People are building houses that have grown up in these poor neighborhoods like Northline. And so the tacit approval is there, and they've all been voting accordingly. But now it's actually threatening their own existence and way of life. And when you talk about water and resources, and you have children, so I just wanted to emphasize that green jobs and finding ways to get people into the circular economy of green thought is something we want to do here at the grassroots, and we're doing it. So I just wanted to share that and thank y'all for allowing me to sit in today.
Yeah, thank you for that point, Pastor Deb. I hadn't considered that, but yeah, that's a good way to get grassroots support for clean energy. Wakar, did you want to share anything else on the lobby day?
So, the other ask that we had in the House was to fully fund the Forest Service. And the reason for this ask is that there are some proposals from the administration to severely cut funding to the Forest Service. So that was a secondary ask was, that, hey, I mean, you can see right now there's all these wildfires and we need a properly funded Forest Service in order to manage the forest properly, try to prevent the wildfires from getting so big and be able to protect houses. And I mean, it's a pretty straightforward argument. Um, and I would say, I think there was sort of generally support for that. The On the Republican side, probably a little bit less explicit in that they would be going against the Republican president to overturn this. Um, so if this is going to happen, it's going to kind of happen quietly, as there's been so many other funding requests that have been, or appropriations requests that the Congress has basically just gone ahead and um, funded appropriately despite the presidential requests, but they've done it kind of quietly. So that's probably my guess is that's where this is heading. But that's based on 3 meetings.
Okay.
And then the last ask, which was Fixed Our Forests Act, which is different to funding. It's an actual legislation that I was not involved in because I was only in the Senate and didn't have any meetings with Senate officers. That's actual legislation, not funding that CCL's been supporting for quite a while. You probably heard about it before.
Mhm.
And yeah, and the thinking there is that there's pretty strong support for it. The House has already passed it. The Senate is improving it. So the thinking there is that the Senate will probably come out with an improved version, although they're very, very busy, and this has been taking a long, long time. But the hope, or I guess it's more of a hope, perhaps, but or maybe it's an expectation that they'll come out with something, and it'll eventually end up in the lame duck session and probably get passed. But that's that, yeah, call that what you want, hope slash expectation.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody have any questions for Waqar about the meetings that he had?
Well, thank you very much, Waqar. Really appreciate it.
Oh, sure, you're welcome, Joe.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen again and we'll continue with the agenda. All right. And before I move on, so these were some photos. Waqar, do you want to talk about these photos?
Oh yeah, sure. So the first photo with all the people in it, that was on the morning of the lobby day. And CCL usually takes a photo of everybody on the Capitol steps. But in what happened on last Tuesday, I guess it was, or a week ago, Tuesday. That was actually the commemoration day for Senator Lindsey Graham, and then his funeral was later in the afternoon. But the Capitol was being used for the commemoration sort of event. I'm not sure I'm using the right words, but for that event, remembering him. And so our photo got moved to the steps of the Library of Congress. So that's what that is. And then the next three are the three meetings that I was in.
Okay, thank you, Waqar. We can go on to the next page. And one more photo here. This was, well, I'll talk about this one then. We have a clickable link there. And as Waqar mentioned earlier, that there were many other photos that were collected by the CCL national team. This was just one of them. And everybody should have the web link to this agenda. I put it into the chat at the beginning of the chat. You can come back and click on that and see a lot of additional photos. Okay, moving on. And then talking about the Fix Our Forests Act, I have a couple of slides here to talk about this. And I'm going to start off with these two CCL YouTube videos. They're very short. They're about 2 minutes each. They explain a little bit more about the act. And then in the following 3 pages after this, more information to share. So I'm going to go ahead and start the first one.
We're in the midst of a wildfire crisis. Because of climate change and bad forest management practices, the area burned in western wildfires has more than tripled over the past 3 decades. We're of course working to stop climate change as soon as possible. But a century of overly aggressive fire suppression has also played a big role in creating the conditions for today's extreme wildfires. The bipartisan Fix Our Forests Act will take some steps to expedite wildfire resilience projects, like prescribed burning and forest thinning. It puts some limitations on lawsuits, which can hold up forest management projects for many years as extreme wildfires continue to grow. And it expands the area over which the Forest Service can conduct categories of activities that are excluded from extensive environmental review. Fix Our Forests has a lot of other great provisions, like planning to harden our homes and communities against wildfires, and to grow more seedlings to expand our forests. It's not a perfect bill, and our forests will still need more support. But we're confident that it'll put our forests in a better position compared to the current inadequate status quo pace of wildfire management. That's why we're contacting Congress to encourage them to pass the bill. Visit cclusa.org/forests to send a message to your senators today.
Okay, and then the second one.
In 2023, wildfires in the U.S. burned 2.6 million acres. but in 2024, wildfires burned 8.9 million acres. Hotter temperatures and drier forests mean we can expect longer, more intense wildfire seasons, and the damage is getting worse every year. But the Fix Our Forest Act could help change that. It's a bipartisan bill that gives local communities the tools they need to prevent these massive wildfires before they start. It helps fund forest restoration, integrates cutting-edge technology to help with decision-making, and speeds up permitting so fire prevention projects don't get stuck in red tape. It's not a perfect bill, and our forests will still need more support, but we're confident it will put America's forests in a better position than where they are now. Write Congress and tell them to pass the bipartisan Fix Our Forest Act before the next wildfire season gets even worse. Visit cclusa.org/FOFA, F-O-F-A.
Okay, and now when I was putting this this section of our meeting together, I was not really fully aware of what was included in the Fix Our Forests Act or what it was really all about. And so I learned a great deal by just including these slides and going through it myself. And I'm sure this will help everybody on the call. So this slide here is just a bill overview, a couple of key points there. The first bullet point is that the FOFA, the Fix Our Forests Act, it's really going to provide funding for new tools, additional funding for currently used tools like prescribed fire and reforestation that make the forest healthy and better able to withstand and recover from additional wildfires that are sure to happen. The second bullet point there, it helps to reduce wildfire risks to people, homes, and water supplies by adopting new technologies. And then third bullet point, it also does support rural jobs and recreation areas that help to sustain the forest as well. So as Waqar had mentioned, this has already been passed in the House, and it's currently in the Senate for their action. CCL strongly supports this bill, along with all of these following organizations that are listed there, like American Forests, the Nature Conservancy, Environmental Defense Fund, and so on. There's a lot of organizations really working hard to try to support this and get it passed. Why we need the bill. So the key message here is that healthy forests are a key part of the climate puzzle. And this is something that's really interesting and good to know. The American forests currently offset 12% of our annual climate pollution, and that can even grow and do more. But again, as it was mentioned in the videos, wildfires are becoming more and more damaging. They're destroying more and more forests every year because of the climate change and extreme weather. And they give the example of California here, that wildfires in California doubled over the past 30 years. But in California, they have actually tripled over the past 40 years. That's kind of scary. And so I think we've covered the other points here. And the last slide, because we are members of Citizens Climate Lobby, we're volunteers and climate advocates, we always want to take action. Without action, we can't expect much to happen, right? And so the first point here that was mentioned in the videos, we can send an email. We want to write to the senators. This is a clickable link right here. Use the CCL online action tool to write to your senator and encourage them to support the bill when it comes up for the floor vote. And secondly, we are recently getting some letters to the editor sent out to the Houston Chronicle. This will be another great opportunity for anyone that's interested to help write a letter to the editor about the Fix Our Forests Act and get it sent out to the Houston Chronicle. Any discussion on the Fix Our Forests Act? Anybody?
Hey, Joe. Do we know any information about Cornyn and Cruz' views on this?
I do not. I don't know.
Okay.
Anybody else? I'm going to reshare and we'll continue on. So,
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's Court. Can you, I think I might have missed it, but, or maybe, when do we expect the Senate to vote or start discussing the Fix Our Forest?
Yeah, well, Clark, could you talk about that? You mentioned a little bit.
Sure. Court, the Senate has been working on the Fix Our Forests Act for a few months in one of their committees, and I've forgotten the name of that committee. And so they've made a lot of changes to it. I mean, there is actual text, and it came out of committee with bipartisan support. So now it's really just waiting for a vote in the Senate. Although I think there may still be possibility of further amendments by senators, but it's come out of committee with a bipartisan vote. And yeah, so it's got strong support, and so the hope is, that it will get through in this Congress and get legislated.
Okay, thank you for recapping that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Thank you, Waqar. All right. So I've added a new slide in this month's meeting, which I haven't previously included. And this is going to be a slide every month that talks about some positive news on climate action. Because with what's been happening with the current presidential administration, I know that it's difficult to stay motivated and to take action and so on when everything we're trying to do is being completely, pushed back, and it's difficult to make progress here in the United States. So this is a new slide that's going to try to give everybody some positive news, something to hope for. And one of the things I wanted to mention before I even talk about this slide is that we all have to remember that although we're having difficulties here in this country, in the United States, in large portions of the rest of the world, they're making tremendous progress, especially in China, with all of the additional solar farms and wind turbines, wind farms that they're putting together. There actually is an amazing amount of progress that is taking place, even though it's difficult for us to see that and to really understand what's happening. So there's a particular newsletter that I've come across. It has a funny name. It's called the Climate Hopium, and that's a clickable web link if you want to look at that and maybe even subscribe yourself. It's a free subscription. They always have interesting and hopeful, positive news about what's happening. So the title of this month's newsletter from them was, and I have that quoted at the top there in the title. They said, gradually and then suddenly, and then how the age of oil is ending. So from their viewpoint, they see a lot of things that are actually happening that were happening gradually, and now they're starting to move more quickly. And the thing is, they pointed out in their newsletter 3 bullet points here, which they described. The first one as push factors towards decarbonization. And some examples they provided were the need for energy security. And we're seeing that right now with Iran and with Russia and Ukraine, right? Things that are destroying or limiting the amount of the old fossil fuel industry that everybody had depended on. And that's an obvious thing. People want more and better energy security. Another point there in that same first bullet point, the falling cost of renewables. I think everyone knows that, for example, solar is now the least expensive form of electrical power. And that's amazing. It becomes lower every year. Other items here, divestment movements, protest, legal cases, and the changing climate. What that means by the changing climate is that more and more people are becoming aware of the extreme weather everybody is experiencing, hotter summers every year, getting hotter and hotter, and things of that nature. And more people are becoming concerned. The second bullet point, which they described as pull factors, pulling towards positive change, which included more advances in renewable technology, including batteries for battery storage, some political change, consumer pressure, cultural shifts, and along with the political change, new legislation. And then thirdly, that was just a note from me, just restating what I mentioned a few minutes ago, that changes that are happening can be very subtle and not obvious, but change is happening. So I just want to pause there for a minute and see if anyone has any thoughts or feedback on this. Anybody?
Yeah, sorry, it's Court again. Thanks for finding these resources, Joe. I think it's definitely, encouraging to think and remember and to like be encouraged that that there is progress, and then I also think that maybe locally there's here in the States there's also that progress as well. It's just less captured by news outlets, and maybe for next meeting I'll get, so here's like a fun little one where there's a bill, like a federal level bill that Houston Audubon or Audubon, Texas was helping to get postcards, like how we do a postcard campaign, which I know is going to be in like the next slide or so. But so Houston Audubon or Texas Audubon did a postcard campaign for a national level bill, and I can't remember, but it was like about community native gardens, because native gardens are important for birds. And so I think while all of this can kind of feel big, there's many interest groups, and it's also encouraging to see the other interest groups who are supporting the Fix Our Forest Act, where while each of our different interest groups might be focused on very specific things, it's like we're all building towards something, and it might feel small, or it might feel like something's not getting traction, but then it's also important and encouraging to know that there's traction that's coming from a different angle. And it's like we kind of just have to keep taking the wins as they come, even if it might not be like a specific thing that we're interested in. So
Thank you, Court. That was really well said. Thank you. Jim? You're on mute.
Yes, further to the comment that Pastor Deb had in the chat, I watch the radar a lot for the weather, and a little geeky, but you can really see the heat island effect in a lot of these storms moving through, and where the rain often won't happen in the central city. Now, further to your earlier comment, Joe, about the slowly then suddenly, this past couple of weeks we visited New Mexico, and we used to drive to visit through that same area on West Texas to visit the daughter in Colorado Springs. And for many, many years, the wind farms that you would see in between Wichita Falls and Amarillo would be feathered, presumably because they couldn't move around the electricity that was there. But the last couple of trips we've made, they've all been working. So some of the distribution issues may have been solved, and we haven't heard quite the number of ERCOT warnings about the summer challenges and that sort of thing this year. So maybe some of those factors are beginning to kick in, and as I used to tell my kids, while I think geology is everything, economics runs everything. And when even the utilities, as stodgy and conservative as they are, are driving some of the progress. I think that's something we can all be gratified about. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slide deck and we'll continue. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, so now we come to one of my slides that I always do try to include every month, where we can have a sort of a group discussion and reflection, and in the title there, what can I do as a volunteer climate advocate? And I always try to put in some suggestions of what we can do, some hints. And so this month's hint there in the box at the top in yellow. If anyone who's willing to can share some of the climate actions that you have personally taken during the past few weeks. And the second one, we'll get to another slide in just a minute that Cord had mentioned earlier also, where everyone here on the call can help to volunteer on the Texas Voter Engagement Project. And there'll be several slides on that. And I know that Mark on the call today with us, he's an active participant helping out with that. And once we get to that slide, maybe Mark can share his thoughts on that. But for right now, I'm just going to stop the sharing again. And if anybody would like to share anything that you have personally been working on related to climate actions, love to hear it.
Yeah, I'll just share something very small, but something that I don't usually do. So I was walking out of work one day, and my boss was walking out at the same time. So we made a comment about how hot it was. And I said, well, we're all going to have to start driving electric vehicles. So at least I planted the idea. She doesn't have one. She told me she's not ready to shift yet, but at least I put that idea out there.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mark. Pastor Odette, please go ahead. And you're on mute.
Yeah, just quickly, I wanted to say and follow up on that electric car. We put in one of our neighborhood plans here. We're halfway to Bush Airport in downtown on I-45. And we had some people put in an idea to have a charging station because if people are going to rent cars or come through and try to go to expos and all, those are things that low-income neighborhoods that are trying to get better development that we have a chance at once we have our super neighborhood we do and get some kind of a management district going. But that's what I think it's a really good idea, what you're saying about the cars, because we did a study with Bullard, TSU, about mental health effects of the heat island, because the concrete, fewer trees, more concrete, and it makes depression, it makes domestic violence go up. So we can't say DEI words and all that flowery stuff. We don't need to. We simply need to say what the need is. And we state that in the health term. We turn to our medical professional and our institutions of colleges. So the study paid 50 people $10 and 10 people $50. In-depth questioning, motivational interviewing. And Vincino is a federally qualified health center in Denver Harbor and Northside. And now they've commissioned a study between Eastside and Northside Houston about this heat desert. So I think as we get more people on board with that and go the health route, I hate that we have to leave the sustainable goals and all the work that we've all built into our work. But I think we just have to learn a new language and craft our narrative to be strategic.
Thank you, Pastor Deb. That's great. And as Professor Hayhoe always says, communication is the number one thing that'll help us move forward with climate change. We all have to communicate with our relatives, right? Just our close families, with friends and colleagues at work. And sometimes it can be a little bit scary, like, what do I say? I want to say something, but how do I say it? And what do I say? That's important. Thank you. Jim, you had your hand raised again. Did you want to add something else? You're on mute.
No, thanks.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Okay, I'll go back to the slide. Thank you for sharing on that. Okay, and now we're up to the slide here again about this postcard project. And Mark, you're actively involved in this. Would you mind just talking a little bit about it and what you're doing with this.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. So I ordered 100 postcards. I know if you do that now, you're probably not going to have enough time unless unless you're really energetic to do 100 between now and early October. But I started back in June, and I just set myself a goal, either one or two a day, which only takes like 5 minutes to do two of them. And we're writing the message, please vote. We're not telling them how to vote, but these are residents down in the Rio Grande Valley who have a history of voting in the last presidential election, but they didn't vote in the previous midterm. So we're encouraging them to vote in this midterm. We're going to get all the cards ready, put stamps on them, and then send them out about a week before early voting starts. And they're pretty much all 99% Hispanic names that I'm sending them to. So I do a little bit of Spanish and some English, both on the postcard.
Thank you, Mark. And one thing I want to add is that I had heard through research that was done and shared with NCCL or through some other source, I can't remember where I've heard that, but that contacting potential voters in this manner by sending them a personal postcard is actually one of the most effective ways of having them actually get out to the poll and to vote. So this is actually really, really critical. Again, some clickable links there. If anybody's interested, time is running out if you want to participate in this, but there's still time to get involved. Okay, on another topic here, a reminder that the CCL National Monthly Call always follows our meeting immediately after it. We end at 12 noon, and their national call starts right at 12 noon in our central time zone. And the links are there if you'd like to join that. And now we're up to our status reports for lobby team, Grass Tops, Grassroots, Media, and Chapter Development. And for the lobby team, unfortunately, our lobby team leader has resigned her position. She was no longer able to continue, and we're always still looking for someone that's willing to step up and take that leadership position, not just as a liaison, but to help be the essential leader for the lobby team that gets in contact with all of our liaisons. So here we have a list of all of the, within the Houston, greater Metro Houston area, all of our representatives in the House and their districts, and of course our two statewide senators, Cornyn and Cruz, and who our liaisons are. And so Waqar is, of course, there, and everybody listen to him and his feedback on what happened in Washington, D.C. We always keep track of what positions are still open and if anyone new has joined. So for Texas 10, Rep. Michael McCall, I just found out recently, this was previously listed as an open position, but we have a CCL volunteer, Sophie Gormley, who actually is the liaison there, and I've filled in her name, so that's a new change. For Texas 22, Rep. Troy Nels, I know he's not going to be running again, but that's an open position. We're still trying to find a liaison there. And Texas 29, Rep. Sylvia Garcia, unfortunately, our previous liaison, John Segrin, has moved out of Texas to Michigan, and he's no longer going to be able to help us in that. So that's a brand new open position that we have to try to fill. Any questions about the lobby team or anything else that we do with that part of it? Okay.
Hey, Joe.
Yes. Hey, Waqar.
Yeah. So just a comment. I mean, first of all, I think lobbying is really, really interesting, and I would encourage everybody to think about joining a lobby team. You know, we do Zoom meetings, and so wherever you're a constituent, you have the opportunity to join in on a lobby meeting. And going to DC is a great experience for at least two reasons. One is just getting to know CCL better and how it works and what it is. And then the lobbying in person as well is, it's very unique. I mean, I'm very grateful to have had those experiences. And then I'll also throw something in here, Joe, because I can't not be controversial. So I would say consider my position open as well. You should really consider all the positions open after like a certain time, and I think we need more rotation in CCL. Sometimes people stay in the same positions for a very long time and they can't find anybody else to fill them. Um, but if you can go to do something new, and then have some rotation going on or something like that, I think it re-energizes the organization. So that's just a general idea I wanted to put out there. Some of the lobby leads there have been there for a long time. Why would we consider all those positions to be filled forever, right? It's not how businesses work. It's not how most things usually work.
Your point is well taken, and I 100% agree with you, Mark Carver. And this whole discussion, it gets back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this meeting, that we're having a really hard time getting people actively involved, and we simply don't have people that are willing to take those positions right now. If we did, I would even give up my position as group leader. I've been doing this for about 6 years now, and it's time for someone else to take my position, but there is no one.
And you could do something else, so this is the thing, right? And then you get energized, like, because I'm used to this, I mean, worked at Chevron for 30 years. If you were in the same job for 3 years, people would start really like looking at you like, what are you doing? I mean, they would move you. And a lot of organizations are like that, and there's good and bad, but you can swap jobs, you can do other things. CCL in general it looks to me like it tends to not do that. And part of the issue is, there isn't a lot of incoming people. Maybe that'll change after the election or something.
I hope it does. Thank you, though, for mentioning that. That was a great point. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slide and we'll continue on. Okay, grass tops, Court. Are you able to talk about grass tops from your phone?
Yes. So this year, while we our focus has been to try to get a meteorologist campaign, and one of our volunteers, Will, did some research, which was greatly appreciated, and I'm looking forward to this summer of taking the next step with the research that he did. And then as we go into the next Texas legislative session in next spring, there'll be some opportunities there, and that's where it's kind of blending both lobbying and grass tops. And then, just trying to reactivate myself and stay active with the different opportunities through our past partners, so to speak, like Greenlight America. And but for right now, there's an opportunity to continue on the research that Will did, and engage some local meteorologists. And that's my update.
Thank you, Court. Any questions for Court from anybody? Just shout out if you have anything. Okay.
Yeah, Court, I just noticed the representative from Penny Morales Shaw's office is not with us today, but hopefully that's just temporary absence, and they'll continue representing that office in our chapter meetings.
Yes, thank you. I think 2 meetings ago, they might have been on for a little bit. And that was something that I would think as we go into this next legislative session, I think I'm going to reach out to the CCL Texas folks who organize that legislative session, CCL Texas kind of takeover day, and figure out the best ways to engage our Texas legislative representatives, because that might be an action that we can have support with our volunteers, but I want it to kind of fall under the direction of whatever at the state level like they're looking for. But that might be something like late winter, early spring.
Hey, and Mark, that was a good point about them not being on our call today. That just triggered a thought in my mind. I remember in one of our prior meetings, we did have the aide from Rep Shaw's office with us, and he started talking about all of the hands-on bills locally in Texas and the actions that they were trying to take. And I thought that was very, very interesting to me because I was not really aware of all of the things that we're doing. And that led me to the thought I just had where maybe we want to ask Rep Shaw or at least one of their aides to come as a guest speaker at one of our upcoming meetings and just talk more about what they actually are doing there in the legislature and ways that we can possibly help them.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
on. Yeah.
Okay.
Mark, anything on grassroots you want to talk about?
No, been dormant this summer, but I know fall is coming up, and usually there's some opportunities to do tabling. So I'll keep an eye open for that. And I'm always open to suggestions. If anybody knows of a place where we could either do a presentation or do some tabling, please reach out to me.
Thank you, Mark. And I just wanted to mention that photo that I always include there. That's one of my most favorite photos. That was from one of our prior tabling events on Earth Day at Discovery Green a couple of years ago. It's actually a lot of fun doing those. I wish more of us would volunteer to do that. Okay, moving on. The media team, which is myself, and one of my most important jobs is on the media team is to publish our monthly newsletters. I always include the most recent web links there. There you can see for the July newsletter that went out and the most recent August newsletter that went out. I'm hoping everyone on this call is receiving the monthly newsletter and then it's not going into your spam folder. The other thing we do is that we like to encourage people to write letters to the editor of our local newspaper, which is the Houston Chronicle. And I included here, I wanted to call out and give a big thank you to two of our volunteers, Will Steinbaker and Nancy Chen, for submitting their LTEs just very recently within, Nancy submitted hers in this prior week and Will submitted his, I think 2 weeks ago. And so it's really encouraging to see people getting involved in that again. If anybody is interested in trying to write a letter to the editor, I include some web links there, which is a CCL national video on the short how-to. There's an example here of one I submitted a couple of years ago. And then on the next page, more information here. We also had a workshop during our September meeting last year on how to write a letter to the editor. And I've always included the links there. If anybody's interested in how to do that, and you can always contact me directly. Finally, chapter development, Mark or Court, you want to share any words?
Joe, I'll just shout out to Michael Shee. He's on our call, I think. And Michael has agreed to help Court and I contact new members who joined CCL. And so we're dividing that task among us. And I appreciate Michael stepping up for that.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mark. Mark, anything else you want to add?
I didn't have any emails from CCL National about new members the last half of this month. I guess maybe people are on vacation. They got better things to do.
I agree. All right. Well, that's the end of our meeting, our formal meeting for today. And we have about 5 minutes left. If anyone would like to just start a kind of an ad hoc discussion on any topics or any questions, we're here for 5 more minutes if you would like to. Oh, Nancy, were you able to go back to your research and find that detailed research information on the data centers? in regard to the electricity specifically and the carbon
Um,
pollution?
Yeah, so in my notes, I just like did some records in you mentioned the gigawatts. So for example, the ERCOT is currently tracking 474 gigawatts, which is also mentioned in the article of new connection request, about like 90% from data centers. And also in the article it said that's more than 5 times the Texas record peak electricity demand.
Just to
And
repeat that
in
number again, so that's a forecast of an additional requirement of 474 gigawatts in Texas. Is that correct?
yes.
That's a tremendous amount of electricity demand if all those data centers actually get built. Okay, what else did you go back and find?
Yeah, and also about the gigawatts in January 2026, it stood at 233 gigawatts, so it's more than doubled in under 6 months. So that's also a very huge number.
And the carbon pollution?
Carbon pollution, um, so you mentioned about the AI and like for every kilowatt hour of AI computing, it carries like the carbon, the water and land um consumptions. So
I remember that
for
when I read your research, it talked about how many additional millions of tons of carbon were going to be emitted because of all these data centers. Do you have that handy?
wait, did I mention the carbon?
It was in your research notes that we looked at together, not in your letter, but in the research notes.
Oh, you mean the research for different representatives?
No, the research for your letter to the editor. It's okay. If you don't have it, that's fine. It just had some
Oh,
very,
okay.
very interesting information in it. That's fine.
Yeah, okay. So, but I think for the carbon, it should be the same thing. Like, it has more emissions, so definitely the carbons has like during its peak time when it's about like around data centers or using the AI technologies.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Anybody
you.
else? Anybody else have any feedback or quick topics? It's now 12 noon, and so I don't want to keep anybody on the call, but if anyone does have something. All right. Well, with that, thank you everybody for joining and giving up your time on a Saturday. Have a great rest of the weekend.